So welcome. This is going to be a live on the masculine energy, and it's many faces. There's so many types of, just like women, there's amazing different types of masculine energy. I had an amazing experience with a client who I did a hypnotherapy with, a sacred masculine. Such joy in his journey, lots of laughter, so happy. That was his first experience doing hypnotherapy. And he was just laughing and enjoying what he was seeing and experiencing and curious and so forth. So that was one example of a wonderful masculine that I met who listens to my lives. That's how he found me for these sessions. And such gratitude to meet such beautiful, sweet souls. And then you have, and then you have wounded. But wounded to a place where there's such ground to dust, and I don't mean in a good way, because sometimes being ground to dust is a good thing. In fact, we all need it at some point. But some masculines have been ground to dust where they've lost self-respect and they become weak to a place of such weakness that they lose every friendship they have and they gravitate towards the very abusers that they recognize. They don't recognize it consciously, but like, for example, I'm thinking of a friend who I've ended a relationship with, a very good person, actually. But he's decided to be in a relationship with a very toxic, malignant narcissist, I'm going to say piece of shit, and who threatens him in such a way that would put him in a bad situation. And I never knew that certain men would allow themselves to be cornered to such a level where their very freedom, their very autonomy, their very ability to make decisions would be castrated thoroughly. So you have beautiful men who enjoy life, who've been blessed, who are in laughter and joy and bliss. You have strong men who connect and who are, what I mean, it's a different type of strength, because being joyous and loving is a strength. Being a survivalist and surviving some pretty harsh things creates a tempered energy in some men. And some men are soft, poetic philosophers, introspective and gentle. You have some men who are cruel and evil and brutal and misogynistic. And then you have men who literally run towards abusers who seem similar to their parents who abused them. Women have the same problem, but we're talking about men today, not women. We're talking about men. And this very dear friend, who I thought I would have as a friend forever, who is so codependent, addicted to alcohol, addicted to sex, addicted to anyone who would give him attention. In other words, even bad attention is good attention. Who's terrified of being alone. Doesn't want to be alone. Not for long. Can't do it. The key to healing is to be willing to walk alone. If you break up in a relationship, I don't care if you're a man, and there's a study done that the average woman, we're talking about average, will not be in a relationship for 6 months. She will lick her wounds. She will figure herself out. She will work on herself, quote unquote, work on herself. And then she'll be ready to date 6 months, typically, maybe a year later. Toxic men, and that includes all men, they go out, they party, they fuck around for the first 6 months to try to forget the breakup. And then the loss of that relationship hits them like a sledgehammer. By the time the pain catches up with the male, the feminine has actually healed. And it's too late. She's moved on. Quite often it's true. She's moved on. And there's something, now, do all women do that? No, some women don't. I said typical, but not all women. So what I find the most powerful thing to master is to be fucking alone. And it probably was because I was a lone wolf as a very young kid. Like I'd spend a lot of time reading my books, doing my art, swimming alone. You know, we'd have a pool. I'd swim. I'd spend hours in the pool alone. I'd play in the ocean alone. I was alone a lot. So that by the time I was 21, 22 years old, having a beautiful lunch at a beautiful restaurant with a glass of wine or whatever, when I was like 21, 22, 23, was no big deal. Like I was very comfortable in my own skin. I didn't need to have a friend to escort me to have a fucking lunch. I always had a book I would read or a magazine that I would read. And I was oblivious to the world around me except for a wonderful meal and my own company and so on. I would go to movies alone, spend hours in the library alone, things like that. So it never occurred to me that people couldn't be alone. Like, you know, and my friend who, I'm actually sharing this with you because it's really hurtful that I have to say goodbye to him because I will not tolerate anyone who's self-destructive to that level of self-destruction. I'm not someone who's into looking at train wrecks. I don't take any pleasure in that at all. Nor do I want to watch it if somebody is not taking any advice, you know. And he's gotten advice from, he happens to be a friend, a mutual of a few people I love. And they've all given him similar advice, sound, solid, loving advice, completely ignored. And there's a point, I guess this is why I'm sharing this with you. There's a point where you have to ask yourself if this situation is becoming vampiric, where it's draining all you got. And it no longer makes sense to continue the relationship as long as they've decided to choose a partner that is harming them. And I mean harming them in a very nasty way. And at some point, you got to realize that you can't save people from their own self-destruction. Sometimes people have to literally burn. And hopefully you'll be available or around when they do so that you can help them. But you're not supposed to be there while they're doing it in process. After a while, the frustrations become so overwhelming that it's better if you don't continue. And you have to understand that you may know someone, but you don't really know them. You may call them a friend, but you really don't know them. And how you know someone is how they show up for themselves and for you, but mostly for themselves. Because if they show up for themselves with some level of integrity and really working or fathering and mothering their inner little boy or little girl, you're halfway there. You can see, because when somebody doesn't treat themselves well, right, to some level of goodness, then how the hell are they going to treat you with any goodness? And you could say, well, I know a lot of people who don't treat themselves well, they're over-givers. But they're over-givers to a point, and it's coming from a place of desperation. So the energy on what they're giving isn't from a place of love and freedom and gratitude and abundance. It's a place of it's almost like they are bribing you to be there. They will give and give because they're terrified of you leaving. And that's not coming from a place of abundance. The best thing you can do for someone like that is to let them know that they need to realize that the person that they're with is toxic as fuck. And that person's going to destroy them if it continues, and they will. I remember I had a client whose twin married a covert narc. And, doing the cards, being psychically licked, I knew she was a covert narc. Don't ask me how, it was just a download. And I said, what's going to happen with these two people is that they're going to cannibalize each other. Because he's an overt narc and she's a covert narc. And what's worse than any narc? It's a covert narc. They're actually the most dangerous. Guess what's happening? It's only been 3 years. He's gained 45 pounds. He's had eye surgery. He's not doing well health-wise. It's taking him down. She's gotten more grayish in the skin, and she's lost probably 20 pounds, and she looks like shit. She was once I'd say a handsome woman or a good-looking girl, kind of, nothing to write home about, but, and he was a okay, good-looking, guy, and they look like shit. So that's like a big sign. When you start going downhill in your situation, you're dealing with grief, the loss of your love, you're dealing with a lot of stress, or if you're in a relationship and you're starting to lose your glow, it's because one, you could be ill with the big C, it has nothing to do with the relationship, or it has everything to do with relationship, and it's actually draining your energy. You're starting to spiritually bleed out. If that makes sense. You're leaking energy, and it's a real thing. There are pictures, if you can check them out. There are pictures of people who were in a narcissistic relationship and they look like shit. Then there's the picture after they leave the person, like 6 months or a year later, and they look like a completely different fucking person. Their skin color is different. Their hair is different. They're completely different. Similarly, when you're in a twin flame relationship, you will glow up. This is no thing. Going back, though, to the masculine who's self-destructive. At some point, if you're an empath, right, you got to cut it off. You got to cut it off because it's going to drain you, because you're going to empathically know where they're going or where it's taking them. And some relationships are so dangerous, like insanely dangerous, that it's actually physically harmful to the other person. I'll give you an example. If someone's addicted to XYZ, right, okay, and they're trying to cut the habit, right, and they get it connected to someone who's addicted to XYZ and ABC and fucking WYZ and so on, and come into your life, you're trying to kick that one habit, and they're bringing you 3 more habits, you're fucked. And right now it could be so toxic that it's putting you in harm's way. You're going to end up in jail. Something's going to happen. It's not going to be good. It's just not going to be good. So when a friend is in that position and they won't listen to you, right? For example, you have to cut loose, because it's going to drain your battery to a level where if you see them, like literally the train goes off the rails and goes off over the cliff and there's nothing you can do, it's going to mess you up. But I do feel like it's your job as a friend to tell them what you see coming, so that maybe midway before the train fucking hits and goes off the side of the cliff, they can jump the train. They can jump off because they'll remember what you said. I really believe that. And sometimes the warnings are dire. They're dire. They're rough. They're supposed to be. It's like telling a kid, And this is why I hate about parents sometimes. It's like telling a kid, "Oh, don't go near the stove. You could burn your hand." You go, "No, don't go to the stove. You're gonna burn. You gotta boom." And the kid jumps and turns around and pays attention to you. Sometimes you have to, show them that this moment right now is a time to pay attention. Okay? There's a time to be soft, and there's a time to be hard or loud, so that they understand that this is dangerous. You're walking into fucking shark-infested waters. Get out. Get out before you go too deep in the waters, before you're too deep in. And some people, okay, have been raised in situations that are so bad that they've never actually honestly seen how bad it was to themselves. In other words, for all we know, they were SA'd. You don't know. We don't know, right? Most, and especially with men, they're either going to tell you because they're on a massive healing journey, or they will never tell you, much less themselves, because they're in not a healing journey, but a hiding journey. And they're hiding everything. So that situation is never ending. And you can spend hours and hours and hours on the phone trying to convince them not to jump off that cliff, and they will anyway. There's nothing you can do. And at which point, you have to ask yourself, how long am I going to invest in this? Because the more I talk and the more I'm realizing this person's like lying to me, or lying to themselves, or being manipulative, or, whatever it is, the more this is actually, and you got to be honest with yourself, this is actually harming me. Like, I'm being harmed watching this. Like, I am trying to use common sense. I'm trying to be gentle. I'm trying to beg. I'm trying to, bargain. I'm trying to, and you're getting to a point where it's not bringing you anything but massive harm to yourself. Believe it or not. The energies of toxic people are so vampiric, so soul-sucking, for real, that the best thing you can do is make sure that you never come in contact with them. And so my friend, who's in a situation, is in a situation with someone who is incredibly toxic, incredibly harmful, and it is best. And I told him so, and we both kind of agree. We came to I can't, and you can't hear me. Like, everyone, you're getting the same fucking advice from 3 different people who love you. And there are other people who were of incredible influence that stopped talking to you. Like, not all these personalities are wrong, right? And at this point, you have to say, you know what? I think I'm going to call it a day. When you get your shit together and when you grow a set of balls, let me know. But until then, don't fucking call me. I love you. And I'm not going to watch you fucking self-destruct. I'm not here to watch you self-destruct. I'm not holding the phone. I'm not holding your beer. I'm not holding shit. But when you self-destruct and you wake up, hopefully I'll still be, around, and you can contact me and I'll be there. That is something that you can give people that you love. But there's a point where you have to love yourself as well. Especially when you've given them everything you got. And they're still joining you to, they want you to join them into their, misery loves company bullshit. This is why when addicts get clean, they can't hang out with addicts. There's an old saying, hang out with the people you want to emulate. What do people who are around successful people, and I don't mean always money, okay? Rich people who want to be rich, hang out with rich people, because money begets money. Spiritually successful people hang out with each other because they want to be more spiritually successful, more in a place of ascension, more in that vibration of, oh, yes, we can do this. The impossible is possible. Let's talk about the holographic universe. Let's talk about manifesting. You want to hang out with people like that. You do not want to hang out with people who fucking are narcissistic, non-believers, cynical, realists, and self-destructive people. You can't. You fucking can't. At some point, They're going to fuck up your nervous system, and you're going to have to spend time saging yourself, recalibrating yourself, going into meditation, pranayama, to get your nervous system back in, because listening to them for 2 hours and you trying to convince them that they're going the wrong direction is going to fuck you up. And after a few weeks or months of that, you're going to realize, I'm investing, in the wrong horse. In other words, I need to invest in myself or in other people. Because as long as I invest in this person, I'm going to be grieving for them. And if I grieve for them, I'm going to mess up my nervous system. So it's interesting. It's interesting. Do you have any questions or comments? Are you going through something like that? So today, or rather this morning, I made the decision to call it a day with this person. And these are the things that take strength. Because what's interesting is that when you're in that type of confidence, you realize that the universe is taking a situation away. You've got free will. And as they take something away, something new comes in. In the last 3 days, I've been working with 2 brand new masculine clients who are amazing men. Amazing. Hell-bent on healing. Hell-bent on getting the right answers within themselves. Hell-bent on learning, how do I get clarity? How do I find myself? How do I learn what I need to do? And how do I follow my heart? And how do I make sure that my heart isn't muzzled by my ego, my false ego? How do I do all that? And I'm happy to say that there's some wonderful masculines. And I've been working with them for a while, but in the last, say, 3 days, as I was navigating this friendship that is with a masculine, a dear friend, he's like my little nephew or brother or whatever you want to call it. And these 2 men I've met who are clients now, who are so clear about what they want in love. Who are so, and one of them has what he wants, and the other one is in a separation. I'm not sure if it's a twin flame. He's saying it's a twin flame, but we're going to do a session on that. But what he wants, he wanted to make sure his boundaries were controlled, so that she was respectful. But he also wanted to know if following his heart was a good idea. And the thing about following your heart is, first, when you develop heart coherence, then your heart will never lie. Heart coherence is not confusing your ego with your heart. And a lot of people say, well, I followed my heart in the past and I fucked up. No, because if you had followed your heart, you would have never fucked up. Because following your heart is never a wrong, it never gives you the wrong answer. Following your ego, your mind, because you're in love, and you're following your ego because it felt right to do it, because in your mind, you were like looping and you were obsessive and you couldn't get that person out of your mind. And you went ahead and reached out to them. That's not following your heart. That's following your desires, your mind, the obsession. It has nothing to do with your heart, because your heart is not obsessed. Your heart is loving, generous, non-judgmental, but discerns the difference between this is good timing, this is bad timing, this is not the right person, this is the right person. Does that make sense? Once you know that, and you can actually disengage from your monkey mind to your heart, then every decision you make will be true. Trust me, absolutely true. And at that point, you're not making any decisions based on anything else but integrity and true love. And he wants to make sure that he's going to make the right move towards this woman who he can't get out of his mind. And it was interesting too, because he was very connected with the concept of her having not had been sexually active with any other masculine, right? And I remember asking him, well, let me put it this way, knowing the answer, of course. Have you been celibate the whole time you've been in separation? And he went, no, but I went, no. It's not different. It's not different at all. She hasn't had sex with anyone else. I see it. She's been celibate. But you're asking about her celibacy, but you're not questioning your lack of celibacy. How's that? And you've been with other women, and you can't get her out of your mind, and you're still questioning her ability to maybe take a lover? Well, I'm sorry, what did I lose? Did I miss something? And he had to realize that what I was asking him in a really stern way was fair. It was a fair question. I said, but even if she had had sex, it's none of your fucking business. Once you've broken up, it's none of your business. And that's something that you need to realize is not okay to ask. But I'll answer it. And I did. There are patterns of behaviors with women that men need to understand. Because this woman had been celibate for years in her marriage. And the first time they ended up, you know what? Connecting. Sensually connecting. When a woman does certain things, she's not going to deviate from the patterns unless she gets addicted to something. That's the only time she's going to deviate. When a woman is celibate in a marriage and then comes and takes you as a lover because you're her twin flame high level soulmate, trust me, she's not going to be fucking around when you break up. She's not. She's going to be celibate again. When a woman is a party goer with you, she was before you. In fact, it's probably why the marriage is falling apart, because she's a power. That's not going to end. That is the nature of that woman. And that's very similar to men. When a man is celibate and he takes 3 to 4 years to get his head together and then allows himself to develop a relationship with a woman, falling in love. And then something happens where you guys break up. He's not going to go out and start hitting all kinds of women. He's going to go within again. Because it was the very thing of the breakup. It was the very thing he was afraid of getting involved in a relationship, to have to go through that kind of pain. Again, so he's going to retreat within himself. He's not going to go and start kicking down doors to meet new women. The patterns of behavior where people don't really deviate that much unless something tragic or, like I said, addiction takes place. At which point, what I just said goes right out the window, because when someone's addicted, they do things in a slovenly way, sloppy way, impulsive, right? And they'll do shit that they either will kind of not remember. They'll think they made it up in their head, or they will regret it. And eventually they'll stop regretting, because they are in a spiral of self-destructive behavior. But there are things that men who love one, who are serial monogamists, who really, really love, they're not going to go from that kind of process to the process of being a player. A player is a player, whether it's a female or a male. Serial monogamist doesn't deviate. They really actually don't. And that's something that women need to really understand. They really need to understand, and women don't. Women think that all men cheat, and you're getting that from what I find very funny, and it's not funny because it's serious, is that women will get their advice from call girls about men. It's like, all men cheat. Yes, you happen to be the call girl that only gets married men who cheat. You're absolutely right. And there was a comment made by, I think, I forgot who it was an oncologist who said, well, can cancer be treated by other means? He goes, well, I don't know, because all the people that come to me, I'm getting the ones where it didn't work. So I can't really say what's out there. Does that make sense? It's like, does marriage work? And there's this divorce attorney who you probably have seen who said, I don't know, because all I get are the people who come to me who are divorcing, not the people who have successful marriages. They're not coming to me. Clearly, I'm a divorce attorney. Hello. So when you listen to women who are players, let's be honest, who say all men cheat, like, think again. Think again. Because not all men cheat. In fact, it's a lie. There are a lot of men who are serial monogamous who will never cheat. They just won't do it. They'll leave you before they cheat. They'll actually leave their marriage or their relationship before they even consider taking another relationship on. Just like men who always cheat, have always cheated, have a pattern of behavior where they do. They can't. They mean it when they say, you're the only one. They actually mean it. You probably are the only one in their hearts, but you're not the only one they want to have in bed. That's the reality. And just like there was women who are players. They are players. They go for the next gig and the next gig, and the bigger the check, the bigger the man, the bigger the check, and they're really going after the money. The power, the prestige, the money, the clothes, the cars, the this, the that. Some are just going for the flex. Some just have their own issues. Well, whatever it is, as long as you're going to take advice from, like I said, call girls and strippers that say, all men cheat. Yeah, that's the only men they're going to meet, obviously, aren't the monogamous, serial loving, the guy who can only, he's never, from the beginning of the time he dated, he never fucking cheated. Never. They're out there. There are a lot of them. She'll never meet that man because he doesn't go to strip clubs and he doesn't call girls. That's not what he does, obviously. So of course those girls telling you all men cheat, it's because that's the only men coming to them, the cheaters. I don't know why people haven't thought of that one. But there are wonderful men out there that are massively in love with their woman, and they would never put their beautiful marriages or relationship in jeopardy for a one-night stand. Never. And there are men who, no matter how good the marriage is, no matter how good the sex is, will put their fucking relationship on the line for any bimbo that walks through the door. At any point, at any time, it doesn't matter what, how, when, they'll do it. And that's how it is. The trick is to kind of figure out who are you attracting, who are you getting. A mistake that many women do, it's a big mistake, it's a classic mistake. They want to heal the man. They will be the one that makes the serial cheater into a monogamous man. You can't do that. You can't turn a bull into a hawk. You can't. If it's a bull, it's a bull. If it's a hawk, it's a hawk. You can't. Unless the individual wants to go through a massive metamorphosis and they become that because they want to, not because of you, because they want to, because they're sick of their own bullshit. And at that point, they can do whatever the hell they want. The addict becomes clean. The cheater becomes monogamous and honest. The saboteur becomes a winner. They do a 180 to transform themselves for themselves. It doesn't matter if you think it's selfish. It's not. Sometimes being selfish to heal yourself and to be your primary goal of improving yourself is actually the first step of being generous for the future of other people who you care about or people you haven't met yet. They've done all that work to heal themselves for themselves, and eventually you get to benefit. So sometimes you have to be selfish to then turn around and do a 180 to all the people you may have harmed or you weren't able to be there for them, or new crowd of people you've met and you have become the person you always thought you wanted to be, and now you are living that life of integrity. It's a lot nicer to be nice, and it's a lot nicer to have integrity and to be truthful. This is why I tell clients, like especially female clients, I actually respect polyamorous males, because up front they'll say, I can't be faithful. I like to have more than 2 or 3 women as my lovers. I will never be monogamous. It's not how I'm wired. I've never been able to do it. But I love you. And if you're okay with that, we can make it work. If not, I don't know what to say. I can't. But at least they're being honest. And I had a client like that, where she was a serial monogamous and he was a serial polyamorous. And she said, she asked me, will it change? I go, no, it won't change. It won't change. It's his nature. He's a bull. You're a hawk. It's not going to, you can't. Bulls have multiple cows. Hawks mate for life. You can't. It's not going to happen. And so she made the decision. And I had a very good friend like that too. She made the decision not to continue the relationship. And it was a twin. And I had a friend, this is when I first, besides me being a twin with my twin, I had a friend, I've spoken about him before. His name is D. D was a really cool guy. And he had traveled all over Thailand, India. He had gotten his yoga instruction, master's instruction certificate, and all kinds of shit. Great adventurer. And he was definitely polyamorous. He wasn't a pig about it. He was just like, he did his thing. He'd connect. And he was in a union with his beloved. She was very successful financially. He was not. And they couldn't make it work because she was in her ego. She needed him to be monogamous and he needed to be free. And he did not want to lie to her. His life got very hard after they broke up. Very hard, because he was poor and she was not. So his life did a 180 and it spiraled down. But he was not going to lie to her about her expectations. He could have, but he couldn't do it. And he ended up having it took him a year to recover financially from that fall. And he fell. She's a very rich woman, a multimillionaire. So imagine going from a trip to Peru to do ayahuasca with your beloved. She's buying you suits. She's treating you like a god. And she's asking you, please, can you just be... And he could not do it. He could not lie to her. See, that's why I as a man... I don't know how a man can look at a woman in her eyes and say, you're the only one. And then as soon as there's a bling walking by, those declarations go out the window. I admire D for what he said. Because no matter what, he could not lie to her. Typically, twins can't lie to another twin unless there's massive addiction. Anyway, so they broke up. And they saw each other one more time. And they tried again. And they broke up again. Because again, he couldn't give her the declaration she wanted. Which was, will you be monogamous? I can't. I can't promise that. I'm not wired that way. And they met one last time before he died. And he died away from her. They did not live together. By the time he died, she was already in a relationship with a new man. And he was in the community and he died. He died surrounded by people who loved him. But he never lied to her. So, it's far worse to lie to a woman. I don't care if you love the shit out of it. If you can't be fucking faithful, don't fucking lie to her. Tell her the truth. Let her decide. Some women will go, okay. Okay. Someone will say, deal breaker, can't do it. Can't share you. I don't share my toys. And it's over. So in this incarnation, it's over. It's over as lovers, but it can continue as friends, like my friend D and his woman. She was still his woman. Another man was making love to her, but she was still his beloved. And that's what I mean by being transcendental in these journeys. Is that You got to be honest about shit. And it takes a lot of courage to be honest. It takes a lot of integrity. Even if you could lose everything, you're still going to be honest. Like D, lost everything. The manor house, the lifestyle, the food, the best vegan food you can imagine, the best shit. And he walked away because he could not lie to her. And he had a very, 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 very difficult life. Because also there's the grief of leaving your twin. Don't forget. It wasn't so easy. He didn't just leave the money. He left the only woman he really truly loved. So he was grieving for years. To the point where he died of a heart failure. It broke his heart. It's a real thing. People die of a broken heart. Okay? So the concept of integrity in these relationships and also looking at friendships or lovers who are really so self-destructive that it's like watching them hit the wall again and again. After a while, you're like, it's kind of like, I would think it's like somebody self-harming themselves with anyway, I don't want to say anything because TikTok gets like weird. But suffice it to say, it would be like seeing someone taking the H every day. And they're brilliant. They've got 150 IQ. They're fucking brilliant. They could have an amazing life. They could have they have everything given to them. And they choose not to. Because of whatever it is, that they experienced in their early childhood that they weren't able to excavate to heal. Sometimes the patterns of masculines in particular in their self-destructive state isn't straight up like my friend is an alcoholic. And he's codependent and he needs love. And his wound comes from the mother wound. It's a very, very, very deep, fucked up wound because his mother would marry one man after another, after another, after another. It was ridiculous. And he was never good enough for her. She was too busy trying to patch things up, I guess, with her men. Men. Not one. Many. When I was in boarding school in Switzerland, I can't tell you how many kids I met, American kids in that boarding school, who their mother was on her 5th marriage and the husband did not like the kid and the kid knew it and had been shipped to a boarding school in Switzerland. I was there for 1 year because my parents were going through some massive shit and my grandmother had said to them, listen, while you're going through your shit, you may want to make sure your kids are protected and educated. But meanwhile, all my American friends were there because, I'm not joking, the average marriage was 4 to 5 or 6. Because they wanted to live their life and these kids were like an encumbrance to their life. And I get a feeling that my friend went through something similar to that. He was a throwaway kid. Get out of the way, kid, you're in the way of my life. And the mother wound was deep. Very fucking deep. So that he developed into these addictions. And now what becomes from, and this is psychology, by the way, this is known, that your pain caused by a parent becomes the pain you seek from a future lover. To replay that pain because it's much more comfortable and you feel unworthy anyway. And all these fucked up feelings are so familiar that you feel comfortable. Anything outside of that, you feel uncomfortable. Isn't that wild? So as soon as you're like 18, 19, 20 years old and you know your parents are fucked up, go into fucking therapy. Like Jungian therapy, like Eric, what is his name? Eric, I'm trying to remember his last name. Milton, something like that. And it's where They use hypnotherapy. They use fast track therapy. I think if you don't heal in like 23 days or 22 sessions, not 22 days, 22 sessions, and you should be done for this particular problem, for example. And then you could go on to the next problem, and the next problem, and the next problem. But mother wounds, okay? This is why I get a little upset with us as women. That's why we're women right now, so we can right the wrongs. As we were men in past lives. But we women are the ones raising these boys into men. We women are raising misogynists. We are. Because it's not husband. I don't see that many single fathers raising daughters, just so you know. Or sons. I don't see that much of it happening. But I see a lot of single mothers. And I see a lot of single mothers pissed off at the ex, who was a cheater, maybe a batterer, whatever, right? An abuser. And she will take it out on her son. I've seen it. And it's hidden under the veneer of love. But it's a veneer. Because who she'll protect more than her son? Her daughter or daughters. She'll make the son the black sheep, the whipping boy. We're going to have to start getting fucking real about who's raising who. Because there are a lot of fucked up women out there that use their kids to manipulate and to control men. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of fucked up men that are so fucked up. And they have more money, more power, more ability to find a good attorney, and they put these women through hell. I get it. We're talking about men now. Not women. We're not going to keep victimizing women, okay? Or acting like all women are victims. We're talking about men tonight. And we're talking about how fucked up men are grown by fucked up women. Tonight. That's the subject. And if this triggers you, then I've got tons of videos on women and how they've been harmed by men. But today we're talking about the mother wound. And we're talking about how these women, mothers, have raised their sons into misogynists. I have another friend who's raising a son, I'm going to put it this way, who hates women. He's 15, 16, 17 years, whatever. He's a teenager. How did that happen? How does that happen? Isn't that kind of young to hate women already? Who raised them? So when women cater, or mothers, let's call them, when mothers cater to their sons, when mothers make their sons the apple of their eye, when mothers are never really developing a relationship based on philosophy, maybe some, religious beliefs, but not, it should be more philosophical in my humble opinion. And raising a kid on reading different books, reading out loud to the kid, things like that. Putting other women down, constantly putting other women down, constantly. On how they dress, on how they look, on how they act, still spoiling the boy and stifling him with toxic love, or punishing the boy because he reminds you of your ex. Whichever way it goes, you're going to raise a fucked up young man, period. So this is why I've been telling people to read Raising Cain, Protecting the Emotional Life of Boys, for example, and learning how to raise a baby boy into a young man, because many women are tasked to do that. The men aren't coming around. Or some of the men are coming around, and they're doing it out of spite. Let's be honest. Okay? Some men are just really fucked up. They're doing it out of spite. Some men are doing it they really love their children. And in some cases, this isn't the case where the child is raised into a young man who's a good young man, he's got a good head on his shoulders. He's raised by two parents who are co-parenting in a really beautiful, honorable, loving way. But we're talking about the mother wound, you see. We're not talking about the success. We know that, I hope you guys know, there's a lot of successful exes who are co-parenting with absolute success. I mean, they're doing great. We're talking about mother wounds. And mother wounds don't just come out of nowhere. And there's the father wound, the abandonment, the where were you? But the mother wound, I think, can be quite deep. And it's devastating, especially to society. And I think that people don't want to talk about these things at all. I think they want to talk about how, women are always the victim. Are we always the victim? When we were 14 years old, getting our asses pinched by grown men that should have known better? Yes, that's right. And forget 14. How about 12? How about 8? Yes. There's no doubt. And I can understand why a woman in her teens and 20s, a young girl, teens, 20s, into a young woman, 20s, 30s, would have a hate. I mean, I knew women who were terrified of men. That's how bad it is out there, men, with your mother wounds. It's pretty bad. Terrified. That doesn't just happen out of nowhere. Women don't grow up being terrified of men unless there's been some massive harm. But again, let's go back to the mother wound. The mother wound is something that we as women who are of this level, this ilk of character, this, consciousness, like me, like you, like others like us, we need to create even stronger boundaries for protecting this understanding of how to raise boys into men, so that the red pillars like Andrew Tate and what was it called? Something University doesn't become a prominent problem. And the reason why it's becoming a prominent problem is you've got young men who don't have a father figure, clearly, or a toxic father figure. Daddy's girlfriend is 20 and daddy's 55, that kind of shit. And that's bullshit, let's be honest. And mommy is angry and doesn't know how to talk to her son, or is too accusatory. She's not trying to tap back into her past lives as a masculine when she was a man, to kind of like cut it off at the past, certain things to cut it off at the past. But misogyny is also born by women who raise their daughters to hate men. All men cheat, for example. All men are kinky, for example. Isn't that wild? And so you have daughters. In fact, I have clients who are proud, these women younger than me, who have daughters who are still virgins, and these kids are like 22, 23 years old. They're still virgin. What the fuck's going on here? In other words, you're 23, you're still a virgin. It means that it's almost like you're a nun, a novice. You haven't put yourself out to meet a man. Eventually, you're going to meet a guy that you go, wow, he's hot. I'm excited. This is great. We're having a great time. We're not asking to marry here. We're asking to just connect with the first lover. Could be the love of her life. Hell, it could be a twin. High-level soulmate. But these girls are so terrified. I can't tell you how many girls are living that reality. And I'm in shock. It's the fucking 21st century. When I was a kid, I didn't know one virgin, just so you know. It's like none of us were. It's like if we were handling that business like as soon as possible. I'm being not funny, for real. We weren't afraid to get hurt. We were in the business of time to get a lover. It's temporary. It's kind of, let's make it a summer love and let's call it a day. You know what I mean? But today, I would say look for love, find love, attract love to you. Sex is sacrosanct, but you've got so many young people who are terrified of the act of just falling in love with the summer or the year or two, and then it ends. Because it does. It's going to end unless you've hit the fucking jackpot. And these women who have birthed these daughters are proud. I'd be terrified for my kid. I'd be like, what the fuck? You're afraid of life. You're afraid of living. Take a cruise to Greece, for Christ's sakes. Have fun. Jesus, just be careful. Don't let your drink get Mickey. Be smart about it. But Jesus, enjoy. If you have a lover, great. If you don't, okay. But I'm talking about the hate. See, it's not coming from a place of overprotectiveness or honor. The mother's not doing it from that. The mother's doing it because she's so terrified and she's been so harmed by other men that she hasn't worked on herself to say, oh, that's why I was doing these patterns of self-destructive behavior. This is why I was attracting fuckers. That's why I did this. I'll be damned if I can, code my kid's brain and heart with my own shit. I'm going to make sure that kid grows up with none of my shit. But they don't. They go into basic therapy. They never get to the bottom of it. They don't try to rewire themselves. And they raise their kid becoming a mini me of anxiety. That's what's happening. And I see it all the time. That's the problem. More so than I should. It's actually pathetic. It's pathetic. You know what I mean? So, any questions or comments? Any questions? Does this resonate? Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Or is this completely off your radar? I really want to know. Do you guys know that this is a reality? Do you guys know where this mother wound and father wound come from? Do you guys know that there are people walking around in their mid-20s who are still have never been intimate with any human? Do you know how that creates anxiety? Do you understand that creates a hate for the opposite sex? Do you guys see that? Or is this completely out of your minds? I'm curious. No comments. Before you can heal yourself, you need to learn how to speak up and have an opinion. I'm being really real with you. As long as you shut up and you don't speak your truth or the truth or your opinion, and you think your opinion is not important, then you're going to loop into not, walking in your own light. And the first thing is to have an opinion. So if you don't have an opinion, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say to you. I think that's kind of bizarre that you have nothing to say with what I've said. Anyway, the mother wound, father wound is something that is created and perpetuated by people who are too weak to do the massive healing. It's that simple. And until you kind of look into this yourselves and really analyze patterns of behavior and analyze and ask yourself, why is this been going on for so many centuries? And how can we end it? Because we have to end it if we're going to unify as a people for 5D. 5D cannot energetically contain hate like that, distrust like that. It can contain honesty and loving energy and saying, oh, so you're polyamorous, fantastic, it's not for me. And we can have a group of different types of people with different beliefs, open marriages, open relationships, closed marriages, closed relationships. 5D encompasses the idea of being honest and healing whatever is blocking you from being able to love freely, whatever that means for you. There's whatever label you go for. And that can't happen unless you find out where did that mother wound, where did it start? And where did it start for your mother? Her mother wound, her father wound. And to really ask yourself, where? And journaling and excavating and having conversations with your mother, your father, if you can. You're watching your grandparents and going, oh, I can see where that came from. Holy fuck. Grandma's crazy, or grandfather or grandpa's crazy. Or they were toxic. How were they toxic? So that you can actually learn how to heal that for yourself. But I can tell you that being muzzled and not speaking and not sharing and not having real hard conversations like that will keep you in the perpetual loop of Dharma, of the Dharma wheel of 3D reincarnation. Anytime you have resentment towards your own gender or the opposite gender, you're kind of screwed in perpetuating that that fuckery. And it's only going to harm you. It's not going to harm me. I don't give a shit. I'm just sharing with you what's happening. Hopefully it will help you. But when people are self-destructive and don't want to know, and they want to just go with the status quo, you're going to perpetuate these issues. It's sad, but it's you're going to perpetuate these issues. It's sad, but it's a sad truth. That's why people in families tend to not heal incestual issues, because they never talk about it. It's never exposed. So there's a lot of things to talk about, but I'm going to let you go and have a wonderful night, and I'll upload this on YouTube.